The Ruth M. Price 911 call.
What's the problem, ma'am? Oh, there's some guy been checking the place out. How? Well, he went in the back. I have an apartment in the back, and he said he was looking for a guy. And he comes to my door, and said he's looking for an apartment. So I live alone, and I'm an old lady. Mm-hmm. Where is he now, ma'am? I don't have no idea.
We're sorry you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number.
Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Big bad wolf, big bad wolf. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Fa la 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 la.
Your home could be robbed tonight.
What you just heard was an emergency call from one Ruth Mildred Starr Price. Or was it? It's a common debate around the internet whether this call is real or fabricated. See, this call is used regularly during 911 dispatch training as to what not to do when answering a dispatch call. I once trained to be a 911 dispatch operator for months, scoring in the 96th percentile of my critical test, and going forward through all the steps to become part of my local sheriff's office, including taking a voice polygraph and having a full background check run on me. I was offered the position, but by the time that my backgrounds had come back and my polygraph back clean, I had a better opportunity elsewhere. But likely, if I would have gone through the training and accepted the role, I would have heard this exact call, as it has been said that many jurisdictions still use the call to this very day. The caller identifies herself as Ruth Price. As you heard during the audio, she called in reference to a man who was asking about an apartment around her home. As an elderly lady living by herself, the man looked suspicious, so she decided to call authorities. And about midway through the call, her voice stops, and she is abruptly attacked by her intruder. Several theories have sprouted around the internet about this specific call. One of the more popular theories is that the woman died right there. Another popular theory is that this was not a real call at all and simply fabricated for 911 dispatch callers, as we stated previously. That was until the case was cracked wide open by Redditor 𝐴𝑟valuable5819 in the Unresolved Mysteries subreddit. He did a lot of research, and the full Reddit post will be in the description down below for your own viewing. But for the sake of this video, I'll state the facts. Part of the reason why some people believe this is not a real 911 call is that the 911 service was not officially implemented in San Diego until 1980, the exact year when this call would have come through, meaning it would have been one of the very first calls put through the brand new 911 system in San Diego. Or simply this call could be a straight dial to the police department. This Redditor was able to track back the address to one Ruth Mildred Starr Price. Ruth Price. Born December 7th, 1913 in Pueblo, Colorado. She attended Central High School in Pueblo and married William Walter Price, who passed away in the early 70s, leaving Ruth Price on the night of November 3rd, 1980, to be alone by herself and a victim of a gruesome attack. The San Diego Evening Tribune had an article that one Ruth M. Price was attacked on the 3800 block of 35th Street. The article states she called the police to report a prowler when she was grabbed from behind and choked. And actually, I'm quite excited. Very rarely do I get to give you good news on this channel. Despite dropping the phone and being viciously choked, Ruth was able to fight off her attacker and the assailant fled. Ruth survived the attack. Ruth M. Price would live on from this attack for another 14 years and pass away in May of 1994, according to a San Diego Union Tribune obituary. But even after her death, this chilling 911 call will live on in the halls of the Lancaster Library.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Missing Brandon Lawson. Brandon Lawson was a 26-year-old oil field worker from San Angelo, Texas. He was a father of 4 and had been in a relationship with his longtime girlfriend, 𝐿aDessa Lofton. Described as a family man with a strong work ethic, Brandon was working hard to provide for his children, but like any couple, Brandon and 𝐿aDessa had their share of struggles, financial stress, long work hours, and recently, Brandon had been trying to stay clean after a history of drug use. On the night of August 8th, 2013, Brandon left home after a disagreement with 𝐿aDessa. It wasn't violent, but tensions had been building. Brandon hadn't slept in over 24 hours, and according to 𝐿aDessa, was likely under the influence of drugs, something he had recently relapsed on after staying clean for months. Around 11:30 p.m., Brandon left his home to drive to his father's house in Crowley, Texas, 3 hours away. But somewhere along the journey, something went terribly wrong. Around 12:30 a.m. on August 9th, he called his brother Kyle, saying he had run out of gas on U.S. Route 277 near Bront, Texas. Kyle drove out to help him. He brought a gas can and arranged to meet Brandon, but by the time Kyle arrived at the location, his truck was still on the side of the road, but Brandon was gone. At 12:50 a.m., Brandon made a chilling 911 call to local authorities. The audio has become one of the most mysterious and discussed pieces of evidence in regarding to his case.
911 emergency.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing some guys over. Right here going towards Abilene on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. Got taken to the woods. Please hurry.
Okay, now run that by me.
We're not talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello? 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 Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance? Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance? Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
The call is erratic and nearly incoherent at times. Brandon appears terrified. He claims he's being chased, mentions them, but it's unclear what he's witnessing or if he's hallucinating. When Kyle and a sheriff's deputy arrived at Brandon's abandoned truck, they couldn't find him. They tried calling him several times. Some calls went straight to voicemail. Others rang but weren't answered. Kyle later said he spoke with Brandon once more around 1:18 a.m. Brandon told him, "I'm bleeding," and said he was 10 minutes up the road, but again did not specify where he was. A search was launched. The area where Brandon disappeared is rugged and remote. Despite efforts by volunteers, police, and family, no trace of Brandon was found. Not his phone, not his shoes. Absolutely nothing. Over the years, this has sparked a wave of theories. Some speculate that Brandon was hallucinating, which explains the erratic 911 call in his panicked state. Others believed he was attacked by someone that night, possibly someone impersonating law enforcement, or part of criminal activity stemming from his drug use. Brandon mentioned, quote-unquote, Mexicans in the neighborhood to Kyle in one of his calls, a line that sparked further speculation. Was he being followed or threatened? Did he fear retaliation from someone? Or was he experiencing drug-induced paranoia? In the years since, Brandon's family set up a website called missingbrandonlawson.com, hoping to find more evidence about Brandon's whereabouts and exactly what happened that night. In February 2022, 9 years after the incident and 8 years after the site was launched, partial human remains were found in a field less than a mile away from where his truck had been found. On December 25th, 2024, DNA testing later confirmed the remains belonged to Brandon Lawson. Even though his remains were positively identified through DNA testing, no cause of death could be determined. His remains were skeletal and incomplete, which is typical for someone who's been exposed to the elements for nearly 9 years. Because of the advanced decomposition, forensic examiners could not identify conclusive signs of trauma, such as blunt force injury, stabbing, or gunshot wounds. There was no clear evidence of foul play, but also nothing to rule it out either. Though this discovery brought some peace, for others, it opened even deeper rabbit holes. Why did Brandon run into the woods? Who or what was he afraid of? And what really happened that night on Highway 277? Brandon Lawson was more than a case. He was a son, partner, and father. The night he vanished left a scar on the community, and his final call for help still echoes throughout the halls of the Lancaster Library.
So the next time you're in the forest, be extra careful, okay?
If you knew it was me, would you have listened?
The Grizzly Man Incident. For 13 summers, Timothy Treadwell lived among the wild grizzly bears of Alaska's Katmai National Park, unarmed, completely untrained, and increasingly unhinged. Timothy Treadwell grew up in Long Island, New York. The son of working-class parents, raised in the quiet suburbs, his early life was as ordinary as they come. But something always set him apart. He claimed he was a champion diver, an aspiring actor, and even that he came close to being cast in the sitcom Cheers. None of that turned out to be true. What was true, though, was Timothy was struggling, battling addiction, insecurity, and a desperate hunger for meaning. In the late 1980s, after a near-fatal heroin overdose, Treadwell reinvented himself. He traveled to Alaska claiming he had found his purpose, protecting grizzly bears from poachers and human encroachment. But Alaska's bears did not need protection. Katmai National Park was a federally protected reserve, untouched and remote. The threat Timothy spoke of didn't exactly exist, at least not outside of his own mind. He began spending his summers camping alone in bear territory, close. Way too close. Timothy didn't just observe bears. He interacted with them, spoke to them, touched them, named them. He filmed himself talking to them like old friends. Mr. Chocolate, Mickey, Sergeant Brown, and the bear he claimed to love the most, a massive alpha male named Downey. In his self-shot footage, Timothy appears as a child of nature, shirtless, blonde, animated, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing manically, often delivering passionate and almost sermon-like monologues about the beauty of the wild and cruelty of humans. His self-shot tapes veered between wonder and absolute delusion. But to the scientists and rangers, Timothy was reckless. He broke every rule of wildlife interaction, camped too close, he never carried bear spray, he actively approached the animals, even touching their cubs. His presence wasn't protecting the bears, it was habituating them to humans, making them more dangerous. But Timothy did not care. He believed he had a bond, he believed he was part bear. By the late 1990s, his work began to gain attention. He wrote a book, made appearances on talk shows, founded an organization, Grizzly People. But behind the growing fame, a man was unraveling. He grew increasingly paranoid, railed against the Park Service, claimed conspiracies, enemies, even divine callings. He began recording long, angry rants on camera, swearing at rangers, crying about broken relationships, whispering to the camera like he was a confidant. It was abundantly clear that the line between his public persona and personal reality was beginning to blur. In 2003, Timothy returned to Katmai National Park for his 13th summer season. With him was his girlfriend, 𝐒𝐿 𝐿, a quiet and reserved physician's assistant who by many accounts feared bears. But she went with him anyway. On September 29th, their trip was supposed to end. They missed their return flight. Timothy argued with an airline employee for reasons still unclear. The pair decided to stay a few more days, right at the end of bear season, mating season, when food was scarce and bears were at their most dangerous, as unfamiliar bears began to move into the area. As stated before, Timothy recorded all of his interactions with bears. On October 6, 2003, a bush pilot arrived at their camp to pick them up, but they were nowhere to be found, and the camp was silent and in disarray. It was clear that a bear had loitered nearby, so the pilot called for help, but before he did, he found that a camera was still recording with the lens cap on. This is what was recorded. When rangers finally arrived, they found the remains. Timothy's body was partially consumed, his head and spine located near the camp, his severed arm still wearing his watch. Amy's remains were found nearby, further mauled. A trail of blood and drag marks led from the collapsed tent towards the bush, where her dismembered body had been partially buried under dirt and foliage. Only 1 minute, 32 seconds of the audio has ever been released, although 6 minutes is known to have been recorded. Accounts of the recording describe Timothy screaming for help and calling out to Amy to run. His voice rises in panic and then agony. Amy, terrified but defiant, is heard screaming too. In the aftermath, rangers tracked and killed the bear they believed responsible, a large old male estimated to weigh over 1,000 pounds. Inside its stomach, they found human remains, clothing, and pieces of a watch band. A second younger bear, possibly drawn by the scent, was also euthanized at the scene out of safety concerns. The autopsy concluded that Timothy and Amy died as a result of bear maulings, their injuries consistent with multiple bites, crushing trauma, and post-mortem consumption. But in truth, their deaths had begun long before that night, rooted in a series of choices, blind faith, and a fragile belief that love could conquer natural instinct. Amy Hugard is often a footnote in Timothy's story, but she shouldn't be. She was an intelligent, kind, and hesitant woman when it came to wilderness. Friends say she was uncomfortable around bears, afraid even, but she followed Timothy out of loyalty, or perhaps love. Whatever her reasons, she paid the same price as Timothy. In the years since, the story of the Grizzly Man has become modern folklore, a cautionary tale, a psychological study, a media spectacle. But stripped of the spectacle, it is a story of two people who died believing they were part of something greater than themselves. Timothy Treadwell thought he had found his home in the wild, but in the end, the wild reminded him it was never his home to begin with. A story of obsession, delusion, beauty, and death. A story now housed in the halls of the Lancaster Library.
You two take care of labor.
Only intended for a plane capsule.
You don't want to die of cold, toll-free.
Is it going to happen that one day we read a news article about you being eaten by one of these bears?
Thank you. You're welcome.
What have you done, Travis? They used to say that he was just like a human. He ate at the table, brushed his teeth, wore baseball jerseys, buckled his seatbelt before car rides, and had favorite TV shows. And when the ice cream truck came around, he got excited like anybody else. But Travis wasn't a man. He was a 200-pound chimpanzee. Travis was born on October 21st, 1995, at a private chimpanzee breeding facility known as the Chimparty. His parents, Susie and Coco, were wild caught in Africa in the 1970s, part of a now controversial pipeline that turned primates into props for entertainment or sold off as pets. Travis was taken from his mother just 3 days after he was born. He was purchased for $50,000 by Jerome and Sandra Harold, a married couple from Stamford, Connecticut. They named him after Sandra's favorite country singer, Travis Tritt. He wore clothes, learned routines, and was bottle-fed and cuddled. He grew up in the Harold home on Rock Rimmon Road, a suburban area with horse barns and woods at the edge. The Harolds owned a towing company, and Travis often went to work with them. He was their unofficial mascot. Locals recognized him instantly, and police even posed for photos with him. He became something of a novelty around the town. By the time he was 6, he was appearing in Pepsi commercials, in the exact one you saw before this segment, and being trotted out on daytime talk shows like the 𝐒𝐿 𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗫𝗺 show. Sandra even claimed that he listened better than most children, but that wasn't the full picture. At full adulthood, Travis weighed over 200 pounds, classified by specialists as a significantly obese weight for a male chimpanzee. A fully grown male chimp is estimated to be at least 5 times stronger than a human man of equal weight. Travis could bend metal, rip through wood. His muscle mass alone could overwhelm an armed person in close quarters. That strength was never visible with Travis, at least not at first. He was always gentle with Sandra, obedient. He slept in her bed. She bathed him, sang to him, coddled him like a child. And after Jerome died of cancer in 2004, it became just the two of them. Sandra once said, "Until you've eaten with a chimp and bathed with a chimp, you really don't know a chimp." But others were beginning to worry, because Travis had already shown signs of slipping. On October 19th, 2003, Travis escaped from Sandra's car at a traffic light downtown. He had been startled when a pedestrian threw a soda bottle through a partially open window. He unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the car door, and chased the man through traffic. When police arrived, Travis toyed with them, getting in and out of the vehicle and circling them. It took hours to bring him under control. This should have been a warning. Instead, the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection let it go. Sandra and Jerome had owned him for so long. He had become a local celebrity around the town, and he didn't hurt anybody. But a law quietly went into effect years later. No primates over 50 pounds could be kept as pets in Connecticut. No exceptions, no new permits. The state of Connecticut deemed them too dangerous. But Sandra did not believe Travis was dangerous. She believed he was her son, and nobody would convince her otherwise. Until February 16th, 2009. Travis was 14 years old, middle-aged for a captive chimpanzee, and Sandra had recently brewed him some tea. It was laced with Xanax, a way to treat his Lyme disease. This drug is typically prescribed for humans with anxiety, but in chimpanzees, the effects can be unpredictable. Some research shows hallucinogenic responses in non-human primates, including disorientation, panic, paranoia, and confusion. I mentioned that Travis had Lyme disease. He was also on other medications for it. Whatever his internal chemistry was that day, the cocktail inside him was volatile. Around 3:40 p.m., Travis took the keys to Sandra's car and walked outside with them. Sandra tried to coax him back in, but couldn't, so she called her friend Carla Nash, someone Travis had known for years. Carla had worked at Harold's Towing Company. She'd been to the house many times, but this time, something was different. Carla had changed her hair, she was driving a different car, and she brought with her one of Travis's favorite toys, a red Elmo doll. Whatever combination of factors triggered it, the result was nothing but catastrophic.
Stand for 911, where's your emergency?
Oh, this is Sandy. 241 Rock Rimmon Road.
What's the problem?
Send the police. Send the police.
What's the problem there?
The chip killed my friend.
What's the problem with your friend?
Oh, please.
What's the problem with your friend? I need to know.
Send the police up with a gun. With a gun. Hurry
Who
up.
has a gun?
Please hurry up. He's killing my girlfriend.
What is the problem?
He's killing my friend.
Who's killing your friend?
My chimpanzee.
Oh, your chimpanzee is killing your friend.
Yes. He ripped her apart. Hurry up.
With a gun.
Hurry up, please.
There's someone on the way.
With guns, please. You shoot him.
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey's...
He ripped her face off.
He ripped her face off?
He's trying to attack me. Please,
Okay,
hurry.
I need you to calm down a little bit. They're on the way. Can you put yourself away? I don't want the monkey attacking you.
Please, hurry up. Listen to me.
They're on the way, ma'am.
They gotta shoot him, please. Please, hurry.
Are you there with your friend? I need you to help your friend. Can you go help your friend?
I can't. He tried to attack me now.
Is he still there with your friend?
Yes.
Okay, so then back off. Then don't get any closer, okay? They're already on the way.
Please.
If the monkey moves away from your friend, let me know, okay? So we can try to help your friend.
No, I can't. She's dead. She's dead.
Why are you saying that she's dead?
She's dead. He ripped her apart.
He ripped what apart? Her face?
Everything.
He ripped her apart?
Listen, I think I'm gonna faint. I think I'm gonna pass out.
No, just breathe, okay? I'm gonna stay with you on the phone until they get there.
Listen to me. Please hurry. Please hurry.
Just breathe, Sandra.
Shoot him.
Sandra, stay in your car.
Shoot him.
Sandra, I need you to stay in your car.
Shoot him, please. I tried stabbing him, and he's hurt now too. So he's gonna attack anybody. I can't get out of this car.
Lock your doors on your car and stay there with me.
It don't matter. He will rip the doors wide
Sandra,
open.
just do what I'm telling you to. Stay in the car. The police officers will handle it.
Please tell him to shoot him. Please tell him. Please tell him to kill him, please.
They did, Sandra. They're shooting at him already, okay?
But he's not dead.
I know. They will continue until he's dead, okay? I just need you to stay on the phone with me and breathe.
He's not dead.
What happened during the call was so violent and horrifying that the emergency responders involved needed trauma counseling afterwards. Travis had ripped into her face, her eyes, ripped off her hands, and her jaw. Sandra tried to stop him, first with a shovel, then with a butcher knife. She stabbed him in the back. She later said that Travis turned and looked at her, hurt and confused, feeling betrayed by his own mother. Then he went back to Carla without a second thought. The officers made it to the scene on 145 Rock Rimmon Road. It was 3:58 p.m. What he found looked like a crime scene from another world. Blood stained the driveway. It was splashed on the sidewalk. Red streaks covered the snow. A mangled body lay motionless on the ground. The officer reached for his Glock 45 and fired 4 shots point blank. Travis backed away wounded, turned and ran towards the house, leaving a trail of blood behind him. He made it back through the door, up the stairs, and there, in his own bed, Travis collapsed and died. Meanwhile, paramedics were stabilizing what was left of Carla Nash. She was unrecognizable. Her hands were gone, fingers chewed off, her eyelids and lips torn away, her nose gone. Most of her scalp was missing. Her jaw had been shattered, and her eyes gouged out. One paramedic would later testify that she didn't look like a person anymore. She was airlifted to Stanford Hospital, where the trauma team worked to save her life. In the end, she underwent dozens of surgeries, facial reconstruction, hand transplants, tissue grafts, nerve work, but by some miracle, in 2011, she received a groundbreaking, full-face transplant. The procedure took 20 hours and involved a team of over 30 medical professionals. It was a miracle of science, but it couldn't restore her sight, and it couldn't erase the pain. In interviews, she spoke softly but carefully, never showing any anger. When asked about Travis, she said, "He wasn't a bad animal. He just shouldn't have been living like that." Sandra was deeply traumatized not only by the mauling of her friend, but by the loss of who she considered her son, Travis. After his death, her stepdaughter and a friend said in interviews that she tried to relieve her grief by feeding deer and other animals in her backyard, as well as purchasing another chimpanzee named Chance from an animal trainer in Florida. As previously stated, the legislation when it comes to owning a pet chimpanzee in Connecticut was illegal, so she would make routine trips to Florida, where Chance lived with his trainer. In May of 2010, 15 months after the attack, Sandra died suddenly of a ruptured aortic aneurysm at the age of 72. Her attorney, Robert Golger, released the following statement. Miss Harold had suffered a series of heartbreaking losses over the last several years, beginning with the death of her first and only daughter, who was killed in a car accident, then her husband, then her beloved chimp, Travis, as well as the tragic maiming of friend and employee, Carla Nash. In the end, her heart, which had been broken so many times, could not take no more. In November of 2012, Carla settled with Sandra's estate and received approximately $4 million. All I can imagine is a chimpanzee watching television, buckling in his seatbelt, brushing his teeth, and in his head, he's human, or at least he believes he is. But somewhere buried beneath years of training, he is wired for the jungle. All it took was one trigger, a shift in routine, a changed hairstyle, the wrong toy, or the wrong mix of a medication cocktail that doesn't metabolize quite the same, and then centuries of wild instinct erupt through a suburban shell. The tragic story of Sandra, Carla, and Travis will forever be documented in the halls of the Lancaster Library.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay.